They reflect a changing dynamic in the region, one in which countries rightly recognize the need for regional cooperation to counter Iranian influence and generate prosperity. We hope Saudi Arabia will consider normalizing its relationships as well, and we want to thank them for the assistance they've had in the success of the Abraham Accords so far.
Nader Hashemi is the director of the Center of Middle East Studies at the University of Denver, and he joins me now. Good to have you on the program with us. Do you think that this is something that we could actually see happen, that Saudi Arabia would normalize ties with Israel?
Well, I think the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia very much wants to move in that direction. It's important to appreciate that he's been deeply involved in the recent deals that have been struck between Israel, the United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, and Sudan. But the sticking point is that the King of Saudi Arabia, King Salman, is very much opposed to normalizing relations with Israel unless the Palestinians get something out of that deal.
Now, according to Israeli media, Saudi Arabia wants to wait until after the U.S. elections. If Joe Biden wins, do you think we can expect more states to normalize ties with Israel?
Well, that's a good question. I think the U.S. election, very much is a huge factor in the rumors that we're hearing about internal Saudi debates with respect to normalizing relations with Israel. And it factors into the equation in the following way. The Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, of course, is very close to the Trump administration, close to Jared Kushner. And I think the Crown Prince, MBS, strongly believes that if there can be an announcement of Saudi normalization with Israel before the American election, this will help Donald Trump's reelection efforts and thus strengthen the position of Saudi Arabia with respect to its relationship with the United States. If Joe Biden gets elected, then I think it's going to be a very different set of discussions that are going to take place between the United States and Saudi Arabia. Joe Biden will be much more critical of what the Saudi Crown Prince has been doing in the region, in Yemen, with respect to Iran policy, and of course the ghastly murder of Jamal Khashoggi. There's a lot of internal pressure in the United States for accountability. So I think the U.S. election is very important, but it's pretty clear that the sticking point in Saudi Arabia right now is the king himself. He's on record as saying that there should be no normalization of relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel until and unless the Palestinians, get some land concessions from the Israelis.
So if this does happen, talk to us about the significance of all of this. What is at stake here?
Well, I think the significance really is the stability and the security of Arab dictatorships. Arab dictatorships, particularly Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, are very close to the Trump administration. They want to do everything they can to see the Trump administration get reelected, because if there's a new president, support for these Arab dictatorships will not be as strong as it is today under the Trump administration. So I think that's really the impending sort of event that is looming on the horizon here, and that has spurred a lot of these discussions. But a lot remains to be seen. I don't see Saudi Arabia moving in the direction of Bahrain and the Emirates, largely because Saudi Arabia is a much more complicated society. There's public opinion is against normalizing relations with Israel that don't provide the Palestinians with anything. And in fact, the Saudi Crown Prince was on record, just a couple of days ago, telling the pro-Israel media mogul in the United States, Haim Saban, that if Saudi Arabia were to move in the direction of normalization with Israel, that his life would be in jeopardy, possibly from his own people, who would be very angry at that type of diplomatic initiative. So it's a much more complicated picture. The internal stability of Saudi Arabia is much more complicated than the internal stability of, let's say, Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates, which are just sort of, strong dictators that control their population, and they don't really have to worry about public opinion. In Saudi Arabia, it's a bit more complicated.
All right, we'll leave it there. Nader Hashemi in Denver, thank you so much.